For 6 years, I had been hosting Thanksgiving in my cozy 3-bedroom house in Denver. The smell of pumpkin pie, the sound of children laughing, the feeling of being surrounded by family love. Every November, 14 relatives would gather around my dining table, sharing stories and creating memories. But this year was different. One email from my sister Amanda changed everything, and what she did next completely destroyed our family tradition in a way I never saw coming. Before I share what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy real family stories. Trust me, you will not believe what my sister did that completely ruined our family tradition. Let me paint you a picture of how special these Thanksgiving gatherings had become. My house was not the biggest, but it was filled with warmth. Every year, I would spend weeks preparing the perfect menu. The 18-pound turkey, my grandmother's pumpkin pie recipe that had been passed down for generations, and my signature mac and cheese that everyone raved about. The kitchen would be bustling with activity as family members pitched in to help with the cooking. Our guest list was always the same 14 people. My parents would drive down from Fort Collins. My sister Amanda would come with her husband Mark, and their 2 children, Emma, who was 8, and Lucas, who was 6. My younger brother Jake, a graduate student at University of Colorado, would bring his endless energy and terrible jokes. Then there were the extended family members, Uncle Pete, with his booming voice and endless stories from his days as a truck driver, Aunt Lisa, who always brought her famous green bean casserole, and a few other cousins and their kids. The atmosphere was always relaxed and joyful. Children would run around the house playing hide and seek between the living room and bedrooms. Adults would cluster in the kitchen, sharing gossip and catching up on each other's lives. Uncle Pete would hold court in the living room, regaling anyone who would listen with tales from the road. The whole house would echo with laughter conversations, overlapping in the most beautiful chaos. But my sister Amanda had always been different from the rest of us. At 31 years old, she was a corporate lawyer who lived in an upscale suburban neighborhood with perfectly manicured lawns and houses that looked like they belonged in a magazine. Amanda thrived on control and organization. Everything in her life had its place, from her color-coordinated closets to her children's scheduled playtime. Her husband Mark, a certified public accountant, was equally methodical in his approach to life. Over the past few years, Amanda had started offering what she called helpful suggestions about how I organize Thanksgiving. She would comment on the timing of the meal, suggest changes to the seating arrangement, or question my choice of side dishes. I had always brushed off these comments, chalking them up to her perfectionist personality. I wanted to keep the peace and maintain family harmony, so I would smile and nod while internally rolling my eyes. The first sign that this year would be different came in mid-October, when I received an email from Amanda. The subject line read, Thanksgiving 2024, Important Updates. I opened it while sipping my morning coffee, expecting maybe a reminder about dietary restrictions or a request to bring something specific. Instead, I found a carefully worded message expressing Amanda's concern about the need for our gathering to be more professional this year. She mentioned that there had been a few incidents the previous year that needed to be addressed. She was referring to when little Lucas had accidentally knocked over a glass of cranberry juice on my beige sofa, and when Uncle Pete had gotten a bit loud during his storytelling after his second beer. Amanda suggested that our family gathering needed more structure and guidelines to ensure that everyone could enjoy themselves properly. She concluded the email by saying she would send me a detailed plan soon that would help make this year's Thanksgiving the best yet. I remember feeling a knot form in my stomach as I read those words. Something felt off about the tone, but I tried to convince myself that Amanda just wanted to help make the day run more smoothly. I called her that afternoon to ask what she meant by guidelines and detailed plan. Amanda's voice was crisp and businesslike when she answered. She explained that as we all got older, our family gatherings should evolve to reflect our maturity. She mentioned that other families she knew had found success in implementing certain standards for their holiday gatherings. When I pressed her for more details, she simply said she would send me everything in writing so I could review it properly. A week later, the second email arrived. This time, there was an attachment, a 3-page PDF document titled Thanksgiving Family Gathering Guidelines. The file was formatted in Times New Roman size 12 font, and it looked remarkably similar to the legal documents Amanda dealt with at work. I opened the attachment with a mixture of curiosity and growing unease. As I began reading the first few sections, my heart started pounding and my hands began to shake slightly. I could not believe what I was seeing on my computer screen. The document Amanda had created was unlike anything I had ever seen for a family gathering. It was divided into 7 detailed sections, each outlining specific rules and expectations for our Thanksgiving dinner. Section 1 was titled Arrival Protocol and specified that all family members must arrive at exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Early arrivals would not be accommodated as the host needed time for final preparations, and late arrivals were unacceptable as they would disrupt the meal schedule. A grace period of no more than 5 minutes was allowed for traffic or parking issues. Section 2 covered the dress code and mandated business casual attire for all adults. The guidelines specifically prohibited gym clothes, ripped jeans, or overly casual clothing. Children were required to wear what Amanda termed presentable attire, and parents were responsible for ensuring their offspring looked appropriate for a formal family gathering. Section 3 detailed conversation guidelines that made my jaw drop. Political discussions were strictly forbidden, as were conversations about religion or personal financial matters. Amanda had even included a clause limiting phone conversations to no more than 10 minutes per person, and these calls had to be taken outside to avoid disturbing other guests. Section 4 focused on children's supervision and was perhaps the most shocking part of the entire document. Children would only be allowed to play in designated areas of the house, specifically the basement rec room. Running, jumping, or loud play was prohibited in the main living areas. Parents were required to supervise their children 100% of the time and would be held responsible for any damages or disruptions. Section 5 addressed food and beverage consumption with military precision. Adults were limited to no more than 2 alcoholic drinks per person throughout the entire event. Outside, food could not be brought without prior written approval from the host, which meant approval from me, although Amanda had apparently taken it upon herself to create these rules for my own house. Section 6 outlined cleanup duties with assigned tasks for each family member. Amanda had created a detailed schedule showing who would clear which course, who would load the dishwasher, and who would be responsible for wiping down surfaces. Even the timing was specified, with cleanup beginning immediately after dessert. Section 7 established a mandatory departure time, requiring all guests to leave by 8 o'clock in the evening so that the host could rest and recover from the day. I stared at my computer screen in complete disbelief. This was not a set of helpful guidelines. This was a military operation disguised as a family dinner. I thought about Uncle Pete, who at 65 years old was being told he could only talk on the phone for 10 minutes and could not discuss anything meaningful. I imagined my niece and nephew, Emma and Lucas, being confined to the basement like prisoners. The whole thing felt like Amanda was trying to turn my warm, welcoming home into a corporate boardroom. I immediately called my best friend Sarah, who had attended several of our Thanksgiving gatherings in the past. When I read her portions of Amanda's guidelines, Sarah was speechless for a full 30 seconds before exploding with indignation on my behalf. That evening, I called Amanda to discuss what she had sent me. I tried to keep my voice calm and measured, but inside I was seething with anger and hurt. When Amanda answered, I asked her to explain the reasoning behind these extensive rules. Amanda's response was delivered in her lawyer voice, professional and slightly condescending. She explained that she was simply trying to make the gathering more organized and enjoyable for everyone involved. According to her logic, we were all adults now and should behave accordingly. She specifically mentioned the incidents from the previous year, describing how Lucas spilling cranberry sauce had been disruptive and how Emma running around had interfered with adult conversations. I tried to explain that children being children was perfectly normal and that family gatherings were supposed to be fun and relaxed, not structured like business meetings. Amanda's response cut right through me. She said that was exactly the problem, that I did not see these behaviors as problematic when they clearly were. The conversation ended with Amanda telling me to think about her suggestions and that she would be in touch soon. I hung up the phone feeling frustrated and confused. This was my sister, someone I had loved and looked up to my entire life, and she was treating me like an incompetent event planner. 2 days later, Amanda showed up at my front door unannounced, carrying a leather portfolio under her arm. She had created what she called a revised version of the guidelines, which she wanted to review with me in person. Version 2.0 was somehow even more restrictive than the original. The new version included a specific playlist of background music that Amanda had selected a detailed seating arrangement that placed family members according to what she deemed appropriate conversation pairings, and even a bathroom usage schedule to prevent lines and ensure efficiency. I felt completely insulted and overwhelmed as she spread these documents across my kitchen table like battle plans. But the worst part came when Amanda casually mentioned that some family members might not be invited if they could not follow simple rules. Her eyes looked directly at me when she said this, but I knew she was referring to Uncle Pete, whose boisterous personality had always rubbed Amanda the wrong way. As I sat there looking at these ridiculous documents spread across my table, I finally understood what was happening. Amanda was not trying to help me host a better Thanksgiving. She was trying to take complete control of an event that had never belonged to her. She wanted to transform my family tradition into her vision of what a proper gathering should look like. 1 week later, Amanda sent what would turn out to be the final email in this escalating situation. The subject line read, "Final Thanksgiving Agreement, Signature Required." Attached to this email was a 5-page legal document that looked like it had been prepared by Amanda's law firm. The document was titled Family Thanksgiving Gathering Contract 2024 and included signature lines for every adult who planned to attend. It outlined consequences for violations, including a warning system and potential exclusion from future family gatherings. Amanda's email instructed everyone to sign and return the contract by November 15th, stating clearly that anyone who refused to sign would not be able to attend Thanksgiving dinner. I sat in my kitchen reading this contract feeling completely numb. I could not believe that my own sister, someone who had shared countless holidays with our family, had created a legal document requiring signatures for people to eat dinner in my house. The contract included clauses about liability behavioral expectations and even dispute resolution procedures. The family's reaction to this contract was swift and explosive. I forwarded Amanda's email to my parents and my brother Jake, knowing that they needed to see what was happening. Within an hour, my phone was ringing constantly. My father, a 60-year-old retired mechanic who had never minced words in his life, called first. His voice was louder than I had heard it in years when he asked what the hell this nonsense was supposed to be. He could not believe that his own daughter was requiring signed contracts for family dinner. My mother's response was more complicated. She called me an hour later, clearly torn between her daughters. While she acknowledged that Amanda's approach was unusual, she tried to defend her by saying that Amanda meant well, and perhaps I should just sign the contract to keep the peace. Mom had always been the family peacemaker, and I could hear the stress in her voice as she tried to find a middle ground. Jake's reaction came via text message and was characteristically blunt. He wrote that the whole situation was insane and that Amanda had clearly lost her mind. He said he would rather eat ramen noodles alone in his apartment than sign a contract to have dinner with his family. But the most heartbreaking call came from Uncle Pete. At 65 years old, this man who had attended every family gathering for decades was genuinely confused about whether he needed to sign legal paperwork to see his relatives. His voice sounded small and hurt as he asked me if I really thought he needed to agree to behavioral guidelines to eat Thanksgiving dinner. Aunt Lisa's response was swift and decisive. She called to tell me that after 30 years of attending family dinners, she was not about to start signing contracts now. She said Amanda's behavior was disrespectful to everyone involved and that she would not participate in this charade. Our family group chat, which had always been filled with jokes and planning discussions, became a battlefield. Messages were flying back and forth as different family members weighed in on Amanda's contract. Some people tried to stay neutral, while others expressed their outrage more openly. Through it all, Amanda remained completely steadfast in her position. When family members pushed back against her contract, she doubled down, insisting that if people could not respect basic boundaries and behavioral guidelines, perhaps they should not attend family gatherings at all. The breaking point came when Amanda decided to visit me in person to get my signature on the contract. She arrived at my house on a Tuesday evening, carrying copies of the contract and a pen. She had even highlighted where each family member needed to sign. Amanda sat across from me at my kitchen table and explained that as the host, I needed to sign first to set an example for the rest of the family. She said I needed to show leadership and demonstrate that I supported having standards for our gathering. When I told her I was not comfortable signing the contract, Amanda's demeanor shifted completely. Her voice became sharp and accusatory as she suggested that perhaps she should host Thanksgiving at her house instead, where people would actually appreciate organization and proper planning. Then came the comment that felt like a slap across my face. Amanda told me that I clearly could not handle the responsibilities of hosting if I was not willing to ensure basic standards for our guests. She implied that my resistance to her guidelines showed that I was not mature enough or capable enough to organize a proper family gathering. In that moment, sitting across from my sister as she questioned my competence and character, I realized that this situation was no longer about Thanksgiving at all. This was about control manipulation and a fundamental lack of respect for me as both a host and as her sister. But Amanda was not finished. She then revealed something that made my blood run cold. She told me that she had been quietly surveying other family members about their experiences at my Thanksgiving gatherings. According to Amanda, several people had complained about the chaos and lack of structure at my house. Specifically, she mentioned that my cousin Sarah had expressed concerns about the disorganized nature of my hosting and had suggested that our gatherings needed more structure. This information hit me like a physical blow because Sarah was not only my family member, but also my close friend who had always praised my hosting abilities. That night, I called Sarah immediately to ask about her conversation with Amanda. What I discovered made me feel sick to my stomach. Sarah told me that she had never complained about my hosting or expressed any concerns about chaos or lack of structure. In fact, she said the opposite was true. She loved how relaxed and fun my house was during holidays and had often told Amanda how much she enjoyed our family gatherings. Sarah explained that Amanda had called her several months earlier, supposedly to get gift ideas for my birthday. During that conversation, Amanda had asked leading questions about whether Sarah thought our family gatherings could be improved. When Sarah mentioned that maybe we could coordinate potluck dishes better to avoid having too many desserts, Amanda had apparently twisted that innocent comment into evidence of widespread dissatisfaction with my hosting. The realization that Amanda had manipulated conversations and misrepresented family members' words to justify her controlling behavior was the final straw. I felt completely betrayed by someone I had trusted and loved my entire life. Amanda had not only disrespected me as a host, but she had lied about other family members to support her agenda. That night, after Amanda left my house with her unsigned contracts, I made a decision that would change our family dynamics forever. I decided that I would not host Thanksgiving this year. If Amanda wanted to have a family gathering with rules and contracts and behavioral guidelines, she was welcome to organize it herself. The next morning, I sent a simple text message to our family group chat. The message read, "After much thought, I will not be hosting Thanksgiving this year. Feel free to make other arrangements." I intentionally kept the message short and did not mention Amanda's contract or our disagreement. I wanted to maintain my dignity and avoid creating more family drama. Amanda's response was immediate and explosive. She called me within minutes of receiving the text message, her voice sharp with anger and panic. She could not believe that I was cancelling Thanksgiving and demanded to know what I expected the family to do now. She kept repeating that this was tradition and that I could not just decide to end it. My response was calm but firm. I told Amanda that I could not host Thanksgiving under the conditions she had established. I said that if she felt family gatherings needed contracts and behavioral guidelines, she was perfectly welcome to host at her house with whatever rules she wanted to implement. Instead of wallowing in disappointment, I decided to create my own Thanksgiving celebration. I made a list of family members who had always appreciated my hosting style and genuinely enjoyed our relaxed gatherings. This list included my father, my brother Jake, Uncle Pete, Aunt Lisa, and several cousins who had been regular attendees over the years. I also decided to include some close friends who had become like family to me over the years. Sarah was definitely invited along with a few other friends who had no family nearby or who had complicated family situations of their own. Rather than cooking for a large crowd in my house, I made reservations at a cozy restaurant downtown that specialized in traditional American comfort food. The restaurant had a private dining room that could accommodate about 12 people, and they offered a special Thanksgiving menu that included all the traditional dishes we loved. The family's reaction to my decision was mixed and revealed a lot about the underlying dynamics that had been building for years. My mother was initially upset and tried to guilt me into changing my mind. She said, I was breaking up the family over Amanda's suggestions, and that I should be more understanding of my sister's desire to improve our gatherings. My father, however, was completely supportive of my decision. He told me that Amanda had crossed a line with her contract nonsense, and that he was proud of me for standing up for myself. He said he would rather eat Thanksgiving dinner at a restaurant with people who appreciated each other than sign legal documents to have dinner with his family. Jake immediately threw his support behind my restaurant plan. He said he was tired of Amanda's controlling behavior and looked forward to a Thanksgiving where he could relax and be himself. He even offered to help me coordinate the restaurant reservation and communicate with other family members. Uncle Pete was enormously relieved when I called to invite him to our alternative Thanksgiving. He said he had been dreading the thought of signing Amanda's contract and was grateful that he could still spend the holiday with family members who wanted him there exactly as he was. Aunt Lisa was enthusiastic about the restaurant idea and offered to bring her famous green bean casserole if the restaurant would allow outside dishes. She said she was looking forward to a Thanksgiving where she could focus on enjoying everyone's company instead of worrying about following rules. Meanwhile, Amanda tried to organize her own Thanksgiving gathering at her house. She sent out formal invitations to family members complete with RSVP cards and a reminder about her behavioral expectations. However, her guest list was significantly smaller than ours had been in previous years. My mother agreed to attend Amanda's dinner largely out of loyalty and her desire to avoid further family conflict. Mark's parents and siblings also agreed to attend, which gave Amanda a core group of about 8 people. However, several relatives who received Amanda's invitations politely declined and asked me about joining our restaurant celebration instead. When Thanksgiving Day finally arrived, I woke up feeling a mixture of sadness and relief. I was sad that our family tradition had been broken, but I was also relieved that I did not have to spend the day walking on eggshells or worrying about whether people were following arbitrary rules. Our restaurant gathering included 8 people: my father, Jake, Uncle Pete, Aunt Lisa, Sarah, and 3 close friends. The atmosphere was relaxed and joyful from the moment we sat down. Everyone was dressed comfortably, conversations flowed naturally, and there were no time limits or topic restrictions. Uncle Pete was in his element, telling stories about his trucking days and making everyone laugh with his observations about modern technology. The children present, including Uncle Pete's grandchildren who had joined us, were free to move around and interact naturally without being confined to designated areas. The restaurant staff was wonderful, bringing out course after course of delicious traditional food. We lingered over dinner for nearly 4 hours, sharing memories and catching up on each other's lives. There was a genuine sense of gratitude and connection that felt more authentic than any structured gathering could have achieved. Meanwhile, according to my mother's report the following week, Amanda's dinner had been tense and formal. The conversation had been stilted, with people carefully avoiding any topics that might violate Amanda's guidelines. Several attendees had left earlier than planned, claiming they needed to get home for various reasons. My mother admitted that the whole experience had felt more like a business dinner than a family celebration. She said she had found herself missing the chaos and energy that had always characterized our Thanksgiving gatherings at my house. In the weeks following Thanksgiving, Amanda made several attempts to contact me. Her text messages started out defensive, explaining that she had only been trying to make things better for everyone. She could not understand why I had chosen to break family tradition instead of working with her to improve our gatherings. I did not respond to Amanda's messages immediately because I needed time to process my feelings and decide how I wanted to handle our relationship going forward. The hurt and betrayal I felt were not something that could be resolved with a simple apology or explanation. As Christmas approached, the pressure from other family members for Amanda and me to reconcile intensified. My mother called regularly, trying to mediate between us and suggesting that we both compromise for the sake of family unity. However, I had learned something important about setting boundaries and was not willing to go back to the dynamic where I accepted disrespectful behavior for the sake of keeping peace. When I finally responded to Amanda's messages, I made it clear that I was willing to rebuild our relationship, but only with mutual respect and understanding. I told her that any future interactions would need to be based on appreciation for our differences rather than attempts to control or change each other. 6 months later, Amanda and I slowly began rebuilding our relationship. She never offered a full apology for her contract, or acknowledged that her behavior had been inappropriate, but her actions gradually changed. She stopped offering unsolicited advice about how I managed my home and social gatherings. The experience taught me valuable lessons about setting boundaries early instead of allowing resentment to build over time. I learned that protecting my own peace and mental health sometimes meant disappointing people, and that this was not only acceptable but necessary. It also changed the dynamics within our extended family. People became more conscious of expressing appreciation for hosting efforts and more respectful of the time and energy that goes into organizing family gatherings. The following year, I decided to host Thanksgiving again, but with one simple ground rule that I announced to everyone in advance. I told the family that they should come as they were and just bring love and gratitude. Uncle Pete joked that no contracts were required at my house, which got a huge laugh from everyone except Amanda. Looking back on that difficult Thanksgiving, I realized that the whole experience taught me something fundamental about family relationships and personal boundaries. Real family traditions are built on love and acceptance, not control and rigid expectations. When someone tries to put conditions on your generosity and hospitality, it is perfectly acceptable to take that generosity elsewhere. I learned that hosting should bring joy to the host as well as the guests, and that when it becomes a performance designed to meet someone else's standards, it loses all meaning. Most importantly, I discovered that love does not mean accepting disrespectful behavior, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's need to control others. The restaurant Thanksgiving turned out to be one of the most meaningful holiday celebrations I have ever experienced, precisely because it was filled with people who wanted to be there and appreciated each other exactly as they were. Sometimes breaking tradition is the only way to preserve what really matters about family connections. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who tried to control your hosting or your home? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more real family stories that explore the complicated dynamics we all navigate. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to protect their peace even when it disappoints others. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you feel less alone if you are dealing with similar family challenges. Remember, you deserve to be treated with respect in your own home and in your relationships.